Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we are working on two more Marvel Rivals concepts, and the theme this time is mutants. More specifically, my inspiration comes from the 2000s TV series X-Men Evolution. This was a show that first introduced me to the X-Men, and I even want to say to Marvel as a whole. So for my first character today, I've chosen my favorite character from the series, Quicksilver. I think Quicksilver from X-Men Evolution might be one of, if not the, first fictional crush that I had, which is funny because he's such an ass in the show. Really kicking off my love for villains and antagonists with this one. I was like 8, okay? I just wanted to see the pretty white-haired boy run around. Also, when I first learned he was going to be in the MCU, I was so happy, but then they killed him off in the same movie, and I will never forgive them for that. Okay, so I said mutants, and I said Quicksilver. Before anyone wants to, actually, me in the comments, I am aware of the weird little retcon in the comics that both Wanda and Pietro are technically no longer mutants, or rather, they never were, but I don't care. They've been so closely tied to the mutants for so long that I'm choosing to ignore that tidbit of information. Again, like I said, X-Men Evolution was my first introduction to either of these characters, and at the time they were still canonically classified as mutants and the children of Magneto. I think it's one of those things where the first impression of a character or person really dictates how you perceive them, no matter how much is changed about them. Speaking of Wanda, I referenced her character's face model from the game when drawing Pietro. I tried to make them look similar enough to be believable as siblings, by borrowing things like eye shape, eyebrows, and skin color. One other thing I noticed on Wanda's design was that she is slightly freckled, which I also ended up adding for Pietro. One aspect of design I wanted to keep from the comics is Pietro's hair. Although I feel like most of the modern iterations have done away with it, I thought that the double swoopies were too iconic to pass up. My version sort of sits somewhere in between the explicit style and a natural, messy hairstyle, which to me makes sense because if he's running around all the time at super speeds, there's no way his hair can stay perfectly neat. I do wonder if Rivals will ever actually add Pietro to the game, and how would they handle his speed. I imagine it's very hard to make a speedster feel authentic to play without making them feel overpowered. But I really do hope to see him in the game eventually. The design of the suit, again, takes inspiration from the X-Men Evolution design. It's a symmetrical look, rather than the usual diagonal lightning bolt from the comics. And the colors were also pretty much pulled straight from a screenshot of the show. I do think I prefer the tealish green more than the blue, although sometimes I think it depends on the design. Originally, I had goggles in this design, but I took them out because it didn't feel like Quicksilver to me. I think it was reminding me too much of Tommy Maximoff's Speed, since I already had the over-the-ear half-hood design thing. I also added a jacket, mostly because I like a jacket, but it does make him look like a part of the new DCU's Justice Gang, if you know what I mean. Now, the last thing to do is add the little Rivals highlights, and we're done with Quicksilver. For our second hero today is none other than an X-Men Evolution original. This was also originally a request from Uncle Pepe14, who asked for Spyke. Now, I can only assume, based on the way you've spelled it, that you are referring to this character, because there are other Marvel characters who are named Spike with an I. So, Spike, aka Evan Daniels, is the nephew of Storm, who possesses the mutant ability to extend and retract pieces of his bones in the form of, you guessed it, spikes. He can also shoot them outwards and has been seen sometimes using them as handheld weapons. Although he shares a similar power set to another X-Men character, Marrow, his creators claim to not have known about Marrow, and therefore the two characters have no connection. Spike, as Evan Daniels, never made it into the mainstream comics, but he did inspire the creation of a similar character, Spike, with an I, also known as Darian Elliott. Now, those of you who watched X-Men Evolution probably see the irony of me choosing these two characters for this video, because Spike and Quicksilver were introduced in the same episode and maintain a rivalry throughout the show. These guys hated each other. Remember how I said Pietro was an ass in this show? Yeah, he was Spike's #1 hater. I was doing research on Spike earlier, so I could have stuff to say about him, and I didn't realize that a lot of people didn't really like him that much. I mean, sure, he was a bit annoying at times, but, so are the other characters. I feel like people forget that the show is about teenagers doing teenager stuff. Of course, they're gonna do things that are annoying at times. But that's my fault for reading people's opinions on Reddit. I actually like Spike as a character. He felt like a natural and realistic addition to the team and the show. I think with every other character that has an established personality, there is a bit of restriction when it comes to their characterization, a limitation that Spike didn't have, and that allowed the characters to go in any direction they wanted. Recently, there was some news about how Marvel has given NetEase the green light to create an original character for the game. A lot of people have expressed some negativity at this, but I feel like it's too soon to make any judgments. A lot of good characters had origins outside of the comics, and many of them are fan favorites. Spike is probably not a good example of this, considering he isn't in the comics at all, but you know which other X-Men Evolution original is? Laura Kinney, aka Wolverine, and she's even made it into the movies. S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Phil Coulson was an MCU original, but he's had appearances in comics and other Marvel shows as well. Even Luna Snow herself originated from a different game and has appeared in comics since then. The point is, original characters are not inherently a bad thing. Every character in existence has been somebody's OC. So maybe we should let the Rivals team cook before we start judging. Let's get back to the Spike design though. I gave him basically a toned-down X-Men uniform, which mixed elements from both the Evolution uniform and Darian Elliott's costume, with the green parts. I also quite like the design I decided on with the hair, which has a bit of a spiky appearance. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this design was a little harder to settle on because there weren't a lot of designs I could pull inspiration from. But I am pretty happy with what I ended up with. So here is Spike in the Marvel Rivals style, as well as Quicksilver. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Instagram at KaylinVerse to see the rest of my work. You can also find my stuff for purchase on Redbubble and InPrint, so make sure you check those out. And thanks for watching. I will see you next time.